record. So we're now recording. So this is using query November 18th, the middle of Sprint W.
V?
Sprint W? V?
V,
Is this
W.
V?
The V was the last one.
Yeah, that's
W
what I
is-
thought.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Cool. Today we just want to quickly show one or two new things that we've been working on that we think are pretty fun. And then, yeah, see what we can do from there. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and sort of talk through some of these new elements that exist in Query Desktop. That should be, hi Micah, pleasure, thank you for joining. We're just demoing some new stuff that's in Query and should be coming out in a release later on this evening. So I'm going to quickly share my screen.
I'm gonna have a lot of background noise because I'm at work.
Oh wow, trooper.
So you're just gonna hear a lot of court cases being called. Just ignore it. Just ignore
Okay, totally.
Yeah.
The other thing we can do, Micah, is I can mute you, and then if you want to raise your hand to speak or something like that, just drop a note in the chat. Unless you're on your phone, it looks like you might be on your phone. It might be.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I'm gonna mute myself. Yeah.
Okay, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah, thanks. Feel free to unmute and just yell. Be like, I want attention. But Amanda, you may recall when you visited Query HQ last week, we built this very quick data set of an annual report coming from it was from the New York City's Open Data Portal. You can just pop open the URL so that everyone can see the original source data. This was a report released very recently by the City of New York on the satisfaction of people who were clients of the Family Justice Center inside of the City of New York. And we're using this today to demonstrate a couple of new things inside of Query. And so we have a couple of a very short history that only has 3 things. In this case, we have this new thing called a transform, which we're actually not going to talk about too much today. The big thing we want to talk about today instead is now if we go over to the body, which is the actual data in a data set. And I look at this point, we have this new trick we've shipped in the latest version of Query, where I can actually click one of these headers. And what we get on the side are these very quick sort of description of column statistics for each column. And so we can now actually see a breakdown of stats that Query calculates for us automatically whenever we create a data set version. And so using this, we can sort of see from this data services today, this is a string column type. So this is a column of strings. And what this stat readout is giving us is a list of frequencies of each term. So the word blank is a string that occurs 5 times in this column versus met with case mana 75 occurs 75. And if we look through some of the column stats itself, met with case manager kind of has like a couple of different sort of things behind it, but one of these is occurring 75 times. There's another few that have like sort of case managers that occur 20 times. And so we're cutting off a label here, which isn't the greatest, but we sort of learn a lot of stuff really quickly from these column stats that will make sort of perusing data a little faster. And so like interpretation service is a great example. Here we have, there's only 3 types of values that are in this column, and it's a string type again. In this case, we have blank 44 times, we have no 251 times, and yes, 105 times. And so now this is just a new feature that we shipped over last sprint that you now get for free as part of Query Desktop. And so we can just see this. It's always calculated. I don't think we actually have a numeric column in this one. So let's see if I can't do FDN grants. This data set has a numeric body column in it. If we look at grant amount, this column, we actually can see this time we get like a statistical histogram, which is a distribution of the maximum and the minimum. We get the average values of the average grant. This is a data set of grants made by charitable foundations in 2016. And so the average donation made by the grants, by the organizations we are sampling from is $327,000, whereas the median grant is $50,000, which is very interesting. And so, yeah, we put a bunch of work and time into like getting these stats. We think they're a really nice way to sort of just quickly surf through data and sort of like understand what your data is doing very, in a sort of like really fast and efficient way. Yeah, that sound cool to everybody? Hopefully that's like,
yeah,
neat, nice.
Sorry guys, I came in late.
Oh, it's all good. Hi, Levine.
Hello.
The other thing that we wanted to show you that might actually be very useful in some of the work that everyone is doing is we now have the capacity to add something called a README. I don't know if anyone has ever seen READMEs from the GitHub side of things. So if you're ever on any kind of like old code repository or existing code repository, it has this concept of a README. And a README is a sort of a textual description that lets you sort of like talk about your data set. We still have metadata, right? So you can still do a title and a description here in our example is a detailed summary of the data set's contents. We're sort of encouraging people to use this as like a single paragraph, like, hey, what is this data set? What does it do? And the README can sort of get into the methodology of this. So as I was just saying, like this data set that I've been sort of demoing here is a sampling of charity grants from a number of different foundations. And I could actually just go in and start typing this, right? This is sampling of grants made by charity foundations. And we have this like little preview button here, which lets us sort of like see a preview of it.
Thank you. All right.
But the one thing that we have here that's a little nicer is these are actually markdown formatted. And so we can actually get in here and like use markdown if anyone's anybody familiar with markdown? You guys use this before?
Yeah, I'm familiar with markdown.
Okay, cool.
Through RStudio.
Yes.
It's like the notebook version on like of RStudio.
Totally. Yes. 50 roughly. I'm actually filling this in for real. 50 charitable foundations. And the grants they made. Data comes from 990 tax filings. So because I typed these two pound symbols beforehand, this means this is a heading 2. And so when we click the render button, you can now see like a nice rendering. And so we've been talking a bunch about sort of like taking notes along with your data set. And we now have the capacity to say, I'm going to add a README. And I'm going to hit submit to create a commit. And this add this to our history. And so now I have a README attached to this that shows the actual README data. And so we've been talking a bunch about the sort of value of taking notes and connecting that to the history of a data set. And we now have a place specifically to put those notes so that other people can see them and pick them up. And so in this latest version of Query, we're adding these two major things. We're adding column stats so you can get better introspection of the type of data that you're working with. And we're adding these READMEs so that you can now include the notes that you're collecting about a data set as you're building it. And that README is tracked over time. And so you can actually make changes to it over time, just like any other part of the data set.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Why is it that sometimes I lose, I can't see the publish button tab on my desktop?
Mm-hmm.
I have to re-download the query in order to have access to it. And I don't always have access to the history of the data set that I have created. Yeah, I was having a hard time creating the data set, but so I was able to create one, but it's just that every time I have to re-download query in order to have access to this data and be able to publish it.
We certainly shouldn't need you to re-download stuff to make it useful. One thing I would like to check to make sure, we're working on clearing this up in the future, but I'm going to share my desktop again. You definitely need, if you can't see the history, like if you if you create a new data set, basically we went here and we did create a new data set and I were to choose a file, by default, I wouldn't have any history. And so we need to actually go to status, fill in initial commit and click submit. And then that would create the first version of a data set and then I could publish. But if you don't have a history, then the publish button is disabled. Does that sound at all like your problem, Lamine?
Yeah, sometimes I have, that's exactly my problem. Sometimes I can see the history, but sometimes I can't see it. And sometimes I have access to it, sometimes I don't have access to it. Like you said, if I don't have access to the history, there's nothing to be published. So I don't see the publish option.
So you have to, okay, and then one other thing I would do is sometimes we are running into a bug. We're still trying to track this down. But the other thing that sometimes happens is sometimes query gets into a kind of a funky state. I don't know if I can like invoke it right out of the gates here. It tends to work better in development and actually worse in production. But one thing I would encourage you to do, we showed Amanda this while she was over. this reload button in query, instead of re-downloading query, I'd recommend when you're in query, you try this view reload button first, just to see if that helps fix things up. Sometimes, like you just need to reload query once, and it snaps into action. And it'll sort of show you the data set list. So if you're like not seeing history that you think should be there, try the reload button.
All right. And did you ever have any problem parsing? It says like, oh, you cannot upload this data because of parsing problems.
Because of what?
The parsing, like the data has to be, Have you ever had that problem?
Yeah. Sometimes that's actually the actual source data isn't parsing the way that it sort of should. That may mean like malformed or corrupted data, but it might also mean like, are you trying to create a CSV data set, or are you trying to create a JSON data set?
No, it is a CSV. So this is one of the data that I cleaned the data set, and I exported it from notebook to my desktop, but as a CSV. And now everything is fine. The formatting is good. It can be open in CSV with no problem, but it cannot just be uploaded onto Query website on desktop.
Nice. On the cloud or desktop?
On the desktop, because I cannot. Okay, I can create it, but I haven't been able to publish it.
Right.
But it is in my history.
Okay, that's a good start. So then that means that might be something on the cloud side. What I recommend trying there is try. Have you ever logged into Query Cloud?
I was able to see one of the data set that I published from NYC Open Data. I'm gonna share that link with you guys later. But yeah, I was able to access that, so I have like so my profile.
Okay. So you have been able to make a profile and stuff. Okay. So then that might be, there might be something that is there. This might be a bug we don't know about, and something that is new. And so why don't we hop in Discord and sort of like discuss this more? I'd like to see the actual data that you're trying to publish, and so we might need to get you to publish a sample of that CSV some other way, whether that be through like a Dropbox file or a gist or something else. But it'd be great to see the actual text that or just even doing a snippet of that CSV inside of the Discord chat.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear you're having issues with that. It's the upload process is tough, but we'll make sure that you get all set up.
All right.
One other thing I should let everybody know about. For now, the Apple release process has become a little more difficult for us recently, and so we actually have a couple of releases of Query that are available that aren't downloading automatically. We are working on getting an automatic update. So basically what happens is every time you open Query, it checks for new updates to itself and downloads it for you. But as it stands right now, we are working on reconciling that with the issue that I think, Mika, you ran into, where you couldn't open it on your computer because you were running the latest operating system. So in trying to fix one problem, we sort of like, tried to break one thing, we broke another. And so for now, if you go to, I'm going to share the link to our releases page. And so if you check that, that'll have the latest release. So this is the link to the, and we'll also copy this in Discord, but that's the link to the latest release. And so you can download that right now, which will get you some new stuff. And then we'll be issuing another release to that same page later on tonight. It'll be version 0.2.1 will be what it'll be coming out. But yeah. And that new one will let you get the 0.21 will get you the column stats and the README stuff, which will be nice to have.
Okay.
Okay,
cool.
Thank you.
Did anyone else have any other questions?
I don't have any questions now. I could.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Later on today, definitely.
Questions later are just as fine as questions now.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So let me
just had a comment. So I know we had two homework. One was to upload data set from own version of the data set from NYC Open Data.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was to upload the data set of airports.
Yeah, whatever you had to date. Yeah.
I wasn't able to find any existing like clean formatted data set on airports. And like I mentioned last time, I'm still in the process of like scraping the data in the format that I want. So yeah, I'm still working on that, but I did do the first part.
I think that's totally fine. I mean, I'm not worried about you making some arbitrary deadline around delivering a data set. We can talk tonight about sort of like how we can keep making progress on that airports data set and see what's going on.
Yeah, somebody did upload the airport data set on the cloud, and they had the sources, but they had the name of the airports. They still didn't have the they had some sort of identifiers, but it wasn't their names, the code names.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they didn't have anything code they didn't have any information about the codes, the IATA
or the ICAO. Okay. Interesting. So we'll have to take a look at that data set and see if that's what we can do about sort of like adding IATA or ICAO.
Oh, maybe I can upload, make it better. If that's see if we can. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. Neat. Awesome. That's great. And I wouldn't worry too much about uploading the airport code stuff. Just knowing that you're continuing to plot along is great.
All right.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think that hopefully that covers anything, unless anyone has any final questions. But otherwise, we can keep this call short.
Everything's fine with me.
Okay.
Everything's fine with me. Yeah.
That's always good to hear. I want to make sure. So this is the first time that most of the attendants on our using query call are also friends of ours from another element of our life, which is the program we do with the Knowledge House. As you guys may or may not know, this call, one of the things we're trying to surface with this call on a recurring basis is to let anybody who uses query tell us about stories, frustrations, bugs. And so like the one that Lamine surfaced is a perfect example of things that we're hoping to learn. So even though things are good, I'd love to know if like, as you guys were knocking around on desktop, if there's anything that bothered you, you thought was not intuitive, you could have used more help on, actual bugs that you came across. Really, this is a great place for you guys to be as needy and complainy as you want to be, since that's a really core purpose of why we're having this call.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, to that end, so like if next time we have this, sorry, go ahead, Lamine.
Our mock interview has been canceled, so yes, we're set for later on today too.
Okay. What time is it set for?
No, it has been canceled. So I'm saying the later meeting, we can have the later meeting.
Okay. Gotcha. That's great to know. Cool. Yeah, and so for next, as to Rico's point, for the next call in 2 weeks, if you guys have a list of things that you think could be better, even if it's like change this color to purple, we're happy to talk through some of that. Cool. All right.
That sounds good.
Well, thank you so much, everybody.
I'll definitely have something by then.
Oh, good.
I do have one quick question. Have you guys considered doing a dark mode?
Oh, we have thought about it briefly and then got really scared at the idea of having to implement it. I'm a big fan of dark mode. I use dark mode in most of my life, but we haven't gotten there yet. We'd happily welcome if you wanted to file that issue on the desktop repo. I'm sure others may be interested as well, and they will drive by and thumbs up the request. I mean, if we get enough, then we'll have to do it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a good question. Awesome. Okay. I think we'll call this one a day. Thank you so much for joining, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Have a happy week.
See y'all.
You too. Bye.